There's 4 big threats where I'm going in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park: rain, bears, ticks, and the Norovirus. So let's go through everything that I pack in my 24-pound backpack for 5 days on the trail. So first up, let's talk about rain protection. I'm carrying one of these giant compactor bags. So everything in my pack is gonna go in the compactor bag and then sealed up in my backpack. And this is kind of like the last line of defense. If any rain got through my pack, then everything would stay dry, especially the essentials that you definitely want to keep dry, like your quilt or sleeping bag, clothes, and things like that. It's important to not get the contractor bags, but instead get the compactor bags. I got the 18-gallon ones. So I've got kind of 2 phases of rain protection. One for sort of light drizzly rain, and then one for heavy downpour thunderstorm style rain. So for light rain, I'm gonna bring my Gossamer Gear lightweight ultralight umbrella. These are great, not only for rain, but for sun protection too. I made a Dyneema case for mine. And last time I really enjoyed this, but having to hold it was kind of a pain. So this time I'm gonna experiment with these little clips that it came with. And last time I just kind of chucked these and didn't bother with them. But these go on your shoulder strap and then hold the umbrella in place. So I'm just gonna see what that's all about this time, if that actually works. The second kind of phase of rain protection that I have is gonna be a little bit more thorough. This is a 3F UL poncho, and this thing will cover myself and my pack, and it's got a hood as well. I ordered one that had a zipper down the front. However, that one didn't show up. They sent the non-zippered one instead. I was really hoping to have the zippered one just so I could kind of like unzip it a bit and then have some little bit of temperature control, because I have used a poncho in the past and it gets extremely hot and then you sweat inside of it, and then it's like, well, what's the point of even wearing one if you're just gonna get wet? I also made a little Dyneema sack for it. All right, so let's move on to the clothing category. So one big issue this time could be ticks, and I've heard lots of reports about how ticks are so bad this year. So I got my big thing of permethrium, and I'm gonna treat pretty much all of my clothes. The other thing that I'm gonna bring, in addition to a very small thing of bug spray, is I'm gonna bring my head cover. You never know. You get to camp and it's swarming with flies and bugs and stuff like that, and just would be nice to get those off of your face at least. So I'm gonna bring this with me. This thing literally weighs nothing. It's just a little bug net. Also in the clothing category, I'm trying out the new Zpacks camp shoes, and I'm so excited for these. I don't know if you've seen my other videos, you'll know that I'm really into like finding the lightest and best camp shoes. I've made some in the past, varying success. And these just look awesome, and they're super lightweight. So we'll see. I'm gonna test them out on the trail and I'll let you know how they work out. These are the Zpacks slippers. I am gonna bring a puffy, even though it's June in the Smokies. When you get to camp and it's drizzly and raining and stuff like that, it can just feel kind of cold. So it's nice to have some, clothes to warm up with. And that's exactly what I hope my puffy is gonna do. And you can also use this as a pillow. So I plan on stuffing this in my little makeshift envelope pillow that I've shown in other videos. And then as far as all of my clothes, I'm just bringing all stuff that's that non-cotton, kind of non-absorbent material. So got a couple pairs of boxers, one I'll be wearing and then the other I'll bring with me. This is kind of like an undershirt. This is for sleeping. So I like to really just bring one main shirt for backpacking, and then when I get to camp I swap it out for this shirt. It's nice and clean, and I can just lay down in bed with that and not feel like I'm getting everything too dirty. Speaking of dirty, I'm also bringing my Dirty Girl gaiters. Love these things. I don't think I've ever been on a backpacking trip without these things. And then I'm gonna bring 2 pairs of socks, one to wear and then one as a backup. I usually always never end up wearing the backup, but it is nice to have them in the pack, especially with rain. If things get soaked, it's nice to have a warm pair of socks to put on. And then another big change that I'm making is my shoes. So as you know, in the past, I'm a big shoe swapper. I've like changed my shoes almost every single time. I've used the Hoka Speed Goats, which I thought were great, but the quality and the durability of them just didn't stand up. I've also tried the Merrell Moabs, and I love the Merrell Moabs for the colder months, so like the shoulder seasons. But in the summer, I think they're a bit too hot. So I tried something new this year. I got these on the REI sale. These are the Brooks. These are the Cascadias. So I really like the look of these, and they got a really good tread. So I've been breaking them in just around my neighborhood for the past couple of days, and I really like them so far. They're super comfortable. So I'm excited to use these. They're non-waterproof, so that means that they'll dry out really quick with all the rain that we're expecting. And they have this really cool thing where it kind of holds your laces up here. I thought that was pretty neat. Check out those threads. Really nice. All right, moving on. So the next kind of threat that I'm going to be facing out there is the bears. So as of yesterday, I just got an email that one of the shelters that we were supposed to be staying at is going to be closed due to an aggressive bear in the area. And this is the Ice Water Shelter in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So that got me thinking I should probably beef up my bear deterrent system. Let me show you what I've got. I've got kind of 3 levels of bear deterrent. The first level is my whistle. I think just blowing this in the vicinity of a bear can oftentimes spook the bear, and the bear goes. So that's kind of the first line of defense. The second line of defense, in addition to yelling and banging pots and stuff like that, is my Sabri horn, safety horn. So this, you can blast, and it's extremely loud, and it's also weighs very little. If it weighs more than 2 ounces, I'd be surprised. But if you've got a huge bear in camp that won't get out, or a bear that won't leave your area, blasting this a couple of times might convince the bear to move on. So that's kind of a step up from the whistle. And then the last thing in my arsenal, which I hope to never have to use, but I've got the bear spray bear deterrent. And this is just the last line of defense. I doubt I'd ever have to use it, hopefully, but it's just nice peace of mind when you have reports of bears like ripping people's tents up and other things like that, like I've read on Far Out recently. It is nice to have this in your pack, just in case. There's been tons of reports of Norovirus on the trail, so I'm going to be really careful this time in not catching Norovirus. In addition to bringing my regular hand sanitizer, I'm gonna do some research in the next few days on what if any soap I can bring, like a little bar. I'm especially concerned about it being non-impactful on the environment, and also not a big mess to use, and also not weigh a lot. So if you guys have any suggestions on what I could use, please comment below. And if I don't get to that, I'm just gonna slather this stuff on a lot when I'm at the shelter and hope that it does the trick. And then I've got my regular first aid kit, and in here I've got like bandages, I've got the Lyco tape, I've got some chapstick, tourniquets, some emergency cash, wound dressing, I've got Benadryl and Tylenol, and kind of like antiseptic, and stuff like that, Band-Aids, stuff that you might need in case you get injured out there. I've never had to use this, fingers crossed, knock on wood, but it is an essential to have. Additionally, I've got my Diddy Bag kit with all the usual toiletries and stuff in it. I carry like a tiny toothbrush. I carry a little travel toothpaste, but I only put, leave a little bit of toothpaste in it. Really just enough for the 4 nights that we'll be out there. Because in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, you can't sleep in tents. I'm gonna be sleeping in the shelters, most likely. So I'm gonna bring a pair of these earplugs with me, just in case there's someone who's snoring or something like that in the shelter. And everything folds up nicely in a little Dyneema sack. You can tell I'm really big into Dyneema because I sew a lot of Dyneema stuff. All right, so moving on to the tech category. So like I've brought in the past, I've just got my big, this is a 10,000 milliamp power pack. The brand is INIU, Inui. And this thing is great because I can get, gosh, probably 5 or even 6 maybe charges off of this. But also I can use it to charge my other piece of tech, which is my FlexTail pump. So I do bring the FlexTail, and I think this is really a great little invention. It almost weighs just as much as the kind of manual sack, the air bladder that you fill up the mattresses with. So you can just bring this instead, and battery lasts a long time. I really only have to charge it once, and it's good to go for the whole week. I've got my Apple cord for my phone. I'm gonna bring wired earbuds. In the past, I have brought my AirPods, but I weighed them and they're just a little bit too heavy. And it's also one thing you have to charge, and I'm worried about it potentially getting wet and all the bad weather that we're supposed to have. So I got these on Amazon. Really good deal, and kind of old school, but I feel like that's better in this case. Also, I can charge my Nightcore. I've got the Nightcore. I think this is like the NU20, I believe. Yeah, and this thing is great. It's the NU20, the classic. Moving on to my cook kit. I always go back and forth about this, and this is one of the areas where I kind of pack my fears. But I'm going to be bringing 2 of these. One is like almost done. It's like less than half capacity, and then the other one is full. And the reason that I do this is because, like maybe many of you, I'm a coffee addict, and I have to have my hot coffee and I have to have my hot food. So I bring the one that's completely full, and then I do bring my kind of packing my fears second container. Also, you guys probably know this tip because I've talked about it before. Wrap the bottom with a little electrical tape, kind of really crank it down on there, and that'll prevent it from scratching the bottom of your pot if you use, if you put the pot in, if you put the canister in your pot. I made a new Dyneema sack for this, and I put a little loop on the bottom because I always found that when you go to pull stuff out of this, it was difficult to get it to come out. So I put this little loop on the bottom so you can just pull it out. As far as my stove, I'm bringing the old BRS 3000T. It's probably one of the lightest stoves you can get. I've heard it's not terribly fuel efficient, which is another reason to bring 2 fuel canisters. But super tiny. It's been very reliable for me, and that's what I'm going to be bringing. I'm also going to bring just a small tiny Bic lighter. I change these things out like every 4 or 5 trips just because I want to make sure that this is going to work. I use the Lixdia titanium 750 milliliter, and this is great for me because really all I use it for is boiling water to pour into the dehydrated meals, and then also boiling water for coffee. And the cool thing about this is you can just boil water and then just drink your coffee straight out of it. And I find that if you use the cap, it actually holds the heat in there for a pretty good amount of time. All right, so moving on to my water. So I always carry the Smart Water bottle, like a lot of people do. I just think the size is great, and it's great how you can replace them so easily by just picking one up at, a convenience store. And then as far as water collection, for my dirty water, I'm still using my CNOC 2-liter bag, and I use this to collect dirty water mainly because I love how you can scoop with it so easily. But this is great. And for my clean water, I use my Platypus 2-liter bag here. And then as far as my filter, I'm still using the Sawyer. I'm a big fan of the Sawyer. Works great for me, and I love how you can just pick them up at a Walmart. And if if it malfunctions or something like that, it's pretty easy to replace. All right, so moving on to my sleep system. Even though we're having to stay at the shelters, I am going to bring my tent, obviously, because you're going to need to have shelter just in case the shelters are full, or like if one's unexpectedly closed and you have to tent camp. I've got my X-Mid 1, my Durston, excellent tent. I really love this thing. And sleeping pad, I've got my Nemo sleeping pad. This is the Nemo Tensor Regular Wide. And if you saw my recent video, I made a very lightweight liner that goes on the top of it. And this is, I'm hoping, going to be a game changer, because the feeling of that plasticky sleeping pad against your skin, especially when it's humid out, is terrible. So I'm hoping that this will solve that problem. If you haven't seen the video, I'll link it above. I'm super excited about trying it out. This thing is really comfortable on your skin. Also, for my sleep kit, this is the REI. I haven't compressed it yet, but this is the REI Magna 30. And I don't like to be cold out there, so I always bring stuff that's a little bit warmer than I would think that I would need, because in the Smokies, it's pretty high elevation. It can get pretty cool up there, especially when you combine rain. So I'm bringing the 30-degree quilt. Some comfort items. I'm going to be bringing my REI FlexLight chair. And with the chair, I've got my feet. So I made some 3D printed feet for my FlexLight chair, and I've tested them out on a trip, and they work great. I've actually tested them out on 2 trips, and they work awesome. That was my big pet peeve about these chairs, is how they sunk into the mud, but the feet really keep it more stable and not sinking in the mud slowly, which is very annoying. And not just the mud, but any kind of soft ground. If it's going to be raining, I'm sure there's going to be soft ground, so these things are a necessity. And then pretty much on all of my trips, I bring my Thermarest little cutoff pad here. I know I could probably get a smaller one or a lighter one, but I like the size of this one. And this thing has so many different uses. You can use it to wrap your stove for a windscreen. You can use it inside of your tent as like a knee pad. So if you're ever trying to change clothes or something like that in a tent, you'll know that you have to kind of like crawl around on your knees, and having this in there can really make that process a lot more comfortable. And then lastly, I use this when we stop for lunch. I don't want to set up my chair for lunch, so just having this on the outside of my pack, I can just throw this on a rock and have a pretty comfortable seat while I'm eating lunch. All right, so on to my miscellaneous category. I think I've shown you guys this before, but this is my Zpacks tripod. And this is definitely a luxury item too, but I love to be able to get the camera easily, on a tripod to capture some cool shots. You can also capture a lot of time lapse and interesting shots with this thing. I've got my little repair kit. I've got some cord. I've got a mattress repair kit, because I have been on a trip where my mattress had a leak in it. It was a huge pain. So now I always make sure I have this with me. And then I carry some zip ties just in case. Those are great for repairs on the fly. Also, I've shown in other videos how useful just a piece of Dyneema, like a 24-inch by 24-inch piece of Dyneema to put on the ground, to kind of use as like almost like a backcountry table to set all your gear out on. I put it on the top of my pack because when I get to camp, I unfold the sheet and then I put everything on top of it as I'm kind of unloading everything, and it just helps me in my organization. And then very lastly, well, almost very lastly, is my food. I've got 6 pounds of food. I don't like to be hungry out there on the trail, so I carry a bit extra. And primarily, I like the Mountain House meals. I know everyone has their different opinions about these meals. My brand is Mountain House. I happen to like it. Also, I like how they sell them at Walmart. For lunches, I like to use wraps, like tortillas, and then I get the tuna packages. This time I'm trying the flavored tuna packages, so we'll see how those are. Normally I just get the regular ones in water. Those have gotten so bland that I'm gonna bring these. And I bring some of the round red wax covered cheeses. And then I got a bunch of snacks like trail mix and these things for breakfast, these Kind bars. And then overall, I've just got a lot of just some snacks, berries. So a little bit more than a pound a day for food. All right. I guess the last thing is my pack itself. So this is the ULA Ohm 2.0. I've used this one for a long time. I like how simple it is. It's pretty much just one big container, but you can also strap stuff to the outside, and it has this kind of neoprene sort of flexible material here that you can put stuff in here. But it's just a simple pack and it's super lightweight. So that's it. Besides my trekking poles, I use the Leckies. The Leckie Legacy Lights. I really like these. It's like a synthetic sort of cork material, but very comfortable. And it doesn't give my hands blisters or anything like that. So these are really nice. All right, so that is it. That's all of my stuff that I'm gonna be bringing for a 4-night, 5-day trip through the entire Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So far there's been a couple of glitches with bear closures of the shelters and things like that. So I hope we can get through. We're going to do everything we can to get through, and we're looking forward to it, even though it's supposed to rain every day. But I'm sure we'll have fun no matter what. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. By the way, if you haven't, please subscribe. I'll probably be releasing a video that shows my Great Smoky Mountains National Park trip shortly after the trip. So watch out for that. All right, guys, see you out there. Have a great summer.